Good afternoon, my name is Camden and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going through my most anticipated releases that are coming out between the months of June and about September. I did a video like this at the beginning of the year going over the ones coming out between January and May. I'll link that in the cards if you guys didn't see it. And I will be filming another video very similar to this sometime in September to kind of cover the books that are coming out around Halloween and Christmas. So yeah, all that being said, let's just hop into the books because we have a lot to cover. The first book on my list is The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentill. I have this one pulled up on my Goodreads so I can read the description to you. It says, the ornate reading room at the Boston Public Library is quiet until the tranquility is shattered by a woman's terrified scream. Security guards take charge immediately, instructing everyone inside to stay put until the threat is identified and contained. While they wait for the all-clear, four strangers who happen to sit at the same table pass the time in conversation and friendships are struck. Each has his or her own reasoning for being in the reading room that morning. It just happens that one of them is a murderer. I really love a book that takes place in a very short amount of time, like a couple of hours, so I think this one is going to be a really interesting and high intensity thriller. And this one was just released on June 7th, so you can already get your hands on it now. The next book on my list is The Silence That Binds Us by Joanna Ho. This book follows our main character Maybelline Chen as she is coping in the aftermath of her brother's suicide. May has always felt that she is somewhat of a disappointment to her parents in comparison with her very high-achieving older brother. But when people start using some very racist stereotypes and blaming her parents for her brother's death, May feels obligated to step in and start telling the truth through her writing. This one sounds like it's going to be absolutely heart-wrenching, but I'm really excited for it. I love reading some hard-hitting contemporary, and this one is coming out on June 14th. Next is Never Coming Home by Kate Williams. This book is following 10 of America's biggest social media influencers as they are invited to stay on a very mysterious and exclusive island resort. I'll read you this portion of the description. There's the gamer, the beauty blogger, the rich girl, the superstar, the junior politician, the environmentalist, the DJ, the CEO, the chef, and the athlete. One of the top reviews of this book describes it as being the Gen Z version of And Then There Were None, which sounds really interesting to me, and I love reading about some vapid teenagers. And this one is coming out on June 21st. Next is The Dream Runners by Sveta Thakrar. This book follows children who have been conscripted into service by their gods in order to harvest and collect dreams for the gods to then feed off of. I think this plot, it sounds absolutely amazing and original, and I'm really excited, especially because this one is one of my 5-star predictions for the year, and this one comes out on June 28th. Next is Daughter of Red Winter by Ed McDonald. This book follows our main character Rain, who can see and speak to the dead. She also seems to really have a knack for getting herself into some bad situations, which ends up being the case when she rescues a woman that she finds injured in the snow. No sooner does she rescue this woman than she finds out that this woman has stolen something from Red Winter, which is the home of a very powerful and dangerous group of warrior magicians. From the description of this book, I feel like it's going to be very humorous and a very quest-driven type of a novel, and I'm really excited to read it. It's also really giving me Skyrim vibes, but I don't know if that's accurate or if that's just my perception. And this book is coming out on June 28th as well. The next book on my list is The It Girl by Ruth Ware. This one sounds very much like your stereotypical formula for a thriller novel. We have the very vivacious it girl who has been murdered, a man who was wrongfully accused of killing her, a group of friends who know more than they're letting on, and about a decade of time between when we're following this it girl leading up to her death and present day when all of the friends are reuniting to try and figure out who killed her. Even though it does feel like a very familiar storyline, it is Ruth Ware, and I do tend to trust her and enjoy all of her books, so I'm excited to see how she turns this concept on its head. And this one comes out on July 12th. Next on my list is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I'm gonna read the description of this one because I feel like it really captures the spooky essence of this story. Come home, Vera's mother called, and Vera obeyed. In spite of their long estrangement, in spite of the memories, she's come back to the home of a serial killer. back to face the love she had for her father and the bodies he buried there. Coming home is hard enough for Vera, and to make things worse, she and her mother aren't alone. A parasitic artist has moved into the guest house out back and is slowly stripping Vera's childhood for parts. He insists that he isn't the one leaving notes around the house in her father's handwriting. But who else could it possibly be? There are secrets yet undiscovered in the foundations of the notorious Crowder house. Vera must face them and find out for herself just how deep the rot goes. Does that not sound absolutely amazing? This one comes out July 19th, and I am so excited. I have already pre-ordered it. Next, we have Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. This book follows the wife of a famous comedian who is arrested for his murder when she is discovered standing over his dead body in the bathtub, holding a razor and covered in his blood. Somehow, our main character's biggest concern is not being the #1 suspect for her husband's murder, though. Her biggest concern is what people will uncover about her past now that she is being looked at under a microscope. Descriptions like this one always get to me. I always want to read and find out what the secret is so I can be in on it. So yeah, I'm excited for this one, and I actually already have it because it's available on Book of the Month right now. Next is probably one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia. If you don't know already, I talk a lot on this channel about Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. It was one of my favorite books of last year, and this is her latest book. It is a retelling of The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells, but it is told from the perspective of his daughter Carlotta and is set in the 1800s in Mexico. This one will be coming out on July 19th. The next book on my list is Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen. I have the description of this one pulled up again. Some of these, I swear, like, I try and go through and like make my own little description of these books, but some of the plots are either so complicated or whoever wrote the description did such a good job that I don't even want to like mess with perfection. So anyway, I hope it's not bothering you that I'm reading a lot of these. Violet is a prophet and a liar, influencing the royal court with her cleverly phrased and not always true divinations. Honesty is for suckers like the oh so not charming Prince Cyrus, who plans to strip Violet of her official role once he's crowned at the end of the summer, unless Violet does something about it. But when the king asks her to falsely prophesy Cyrus's love story for an upcoming ball, Violet awakens a dreaded curse, one that will end in either damnation or salvation for the kingdom, all depending on the prince's choice of future bride. Violet faces her own choice, sees an opportunity to gain control over her own destiny, no matter the cost, or give in to the ill-fated attraction that's growing between her and Cyrus. I think the concept of false prophecy in this book sounds super duper interesting, and I'm really looking forward to a lot of the fantasy that's coming out this year. I feel like I've really been neglecting fantasy for the past couple of years, and I'm really hoping to get back into it in the second half of 2022. But anyway, this one comes out on July 26th. Next on my list is Blood Like Fate by Lizelle Sambury. This is the sequel to Blood Like Magic, which I read earlier this year and really enjoyed. It follows a family of witches in a kind of near-futuristic setting that mixes magic and technology in a really interesting way. I obviously can't read you what the second book is about without really spoiling the first book, but if you like magic and witches and the kind of kiss of death trope, I definitely think you should pick up Blood Like Magic and then subsequently pick up Blood Like Fate. And book 2 is coming out on August 9th. Next is The Book Eaters by Sunye Dean. Out on the Yorkshire moors lives a secret line of people for whom books are food and who retain all of the book's content after eating it. To them, spy novels are a peppery snack. Romance novels are sweet and delicious. Eating a map can help them remember destinations, and children, when they misbehave, are forced to eat dry, musty pages from dictionaries. Devon is part of The Family, an old and reclusive clan of book eaters. Her brothers grow up feasting on stories of valor and adventure, and Devon, like all other book eater women, is raised on a carefully curated diet of fairy tales and cautionary stories. But real life doesn't always come with happy endings, as Devon learns when her son is born with a rare and darker kind of hunger, not for books, but for human minds. This one sounds like it has such a unique and interesting concept to it, and I'm really interested to read it. I think it's going to have a lot of interesting commentary as well about society and how men and women are treated differently. I could not be more excited for this one. It is coming out on August 9th. Quick matcha break. I've been getting my matcha with 2 pumps of chai, and it is really a game changer. Next is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. This book follows our main character, Shay, who spent most of her college years in the thrall of a very dangerous and silver-tongued cult leader. Shay and her best friend Laurel were lucky enough to escape from the cult's grip and go on to lead relatively normal lives. A number of years later, however, Shay ends up finding out from a true crime podcast that her best friend died by suicide. Shay ends up reaching out to this podcast host and asking for her help in digging into the past and into the cult's current day activities. I think I mentioned this in another video, but I have really been wanting to do a reading cult books video, so I think this one would be absolutely perfect for that, and I cannot wait for its release on August 16th. Next is another book that I'm super excited for. This one is The First Binding by R.R. Virdi. All legends are born of truths, and just as much lies. These are mine. Judge me for what you will, but you will hear my story first. I buried the village of Ampur under a mountain of ice and snow. Then I killed their god. I've stolen old magics and been cursed for it. I've started a war with those that walked before mankind and lost the princess I loved and wanted to save, and I've called lightning and bound fire. I am a legend, and I am a monster. My name is Ari, and this is the story of how I let loose the first evil. The author has described this as being a South Asian / Silk Road inspired fantasy novel, which I think sounds absolutely incredible. I feel so lucky to be living in a time where so many authors from different cultural backgrounds are putting out so many rich, amazing stories and putting themselves and their culture into their work for other people to enjoy. And I feel so privileged to be able to read them. Sorry, I got so carried away, I almost forgot to mention when this book comes out. It's coming out on August 16th. Next is The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd-Jones. This is a fantasy novel that is set in Wales. We are following Merrid, who is the last surviving water diviner. Years before this book takes place, she was conscripted into the service of the prince and forced to use her powers in order to find the wells of his enemies and poison them. She was able to escape and has been living in hiding ever since, but when her old handler ends up finding her and asking her to team up with him in order to bring the prince down, she agrees. A lot of reviewers of this book have described it as being a heist type book, which I know is exciting for a lot of people, including myself, and it also seems to feature the kind of ragtag team trope, which I also really enjoy. So yeah, even though I haven't heard of this author before, I'm very excited to read this one, and it comes out on August 16th. Next on my list is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is another novel that is described as being a And Then There Were None retelling. In this one, we are following the entire Darker family as they gather together on an island to celebrate Nana's 80th birthday. No sooner has the party started though than Nana turns up dead, and I'm assuming in true And Then There Were None fashion, everyone starts dropping like flies, and the killer won't be satisfied until everyone is dead and all of their secrets are exposed. I really enjoyed Alice Feeney's latest book, Rock, Paper, Scissors, so I'm really excited to read this one as well and see if it measures up. Next is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. In this book, we are following a god who is fighting to overthrow the oppressive regime of the emperor who kept her captive under his palace and the 3 sons she was forced to bear him. She's also being aided in her quest by the 2 young men who helped her escape, who have their own reasons for wanting to be involved in this endeavor. Some of the early reviews on this one say that it is super unique and creative, as well as very disturbing and doesn't pull any punches, so I'm really interested to see what that means and what this book is all about. This one also comes out on August 30th. Next on my list is Belladonna by Adalyn Grace. This book follows a 19-year-old orphan named Signa whose wealth always ensures that there is a relative willing to take her in, and whose bad luck always ensures that they meet an untimely death. But when Signa ends up in the care of the very eccentric Hawthorne family, she starts to become convinced that the matriarch of the family was poisoned and that everyone else's lives are also in danger. Signa ends up recruiting a stable boy and Death himself in order to help her solve the mystery. This one has a lot of positive reviews and early buzz around it, so I'm really interested to see what all the early hype is about when it comes out again on August 30th. August 30th seems to be a really big day for publishing. But yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this introduced you to some new books that were not on your radar before. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you could like this video, comment, subscribe, that would be super duper helpful, and I would love you forever. Whether you do any of those things or not though, I hope you have an amazing week, and I will hopefully see you here next week with a new video. Goodbye.